So I want to talk tonight about all things T-type and just go over the T-types. The engine dates from about 1938. It was a high-speed engine at the time. Nobody'd been able to come up with an engine that ran that quickly, that turned that many RPMs. Remember that horsepower is torque times RPM. So, like a motorcycle engine, you get that up to 15,000 RPM. You can get a lot of horsepower without much torque from the RPM. Same thing with that T-type engine, which is an X series engine. X, and then there's a P following the X for pushrod. It's an X pushrod engine, and then there's a designation for the displacement, and that's A for almost all of our cars. But by the time you get up to the TF, it's an E, meaning that it's not 1250 cc's, but 1500 cc's. And then the final number, the final letter on the prefix on all of our engines is a G, which stands for MG. So that X series engine was also used in Morris's. So they have X-PAM engines, and they were used in Wolseley's. For those are X-PAW engines. So they're all interchangeable, relatively speaking. Used to be some of those around. Those are long since gone. Jerry Gogan used to have a great number of those all stacked up. I talked to Chris Nolan one time. Said Jerry had this huge room just filled with engines, junk engines that they gleaned out of junkyards. So anyway, that engine is a easy enough engine. It's all metric. All the basic measurements are metric. All the fasteners are metric, except anything having to do with oil, water, or gasoline. Those are all British Standard pipe. And there are a very few threads on the outside of the engine that are British Standard fine. Now, the confusion, of course, is that your British wrenches fit the nuts and bolts on that X-Bag engine and your metric wrenches don't. Well, 13 millimeter fits a 5/16 British. It's all but the same size. But Leonard Lord had come up with a program so that they made BSF cap sizes on the metric bolts. Go figure. I think Volvo did that for a little short time too, putting American heads on metric shanks back in the 70s or something. I heard that once. Anyway, so the engine and gearbox are all metric on the inside. All the basic measurements are metric. It's a nice engine. It works just fine. They finally, when they overboard it to the 1500 cc's for the TF, finally the connecting rod will fit down from the top. Oh boy, how exciting is that? And you don't have to crawl underneath and turn the crank in a certain position and put a clamp around the outside of the piston ring compressor around the piston, and push the piston up from the inside of the engine above the crankshaft. I've done that a lot. I've done that a lot. The trick, of course, is only put the bottom ring on and then push it all the way up through and put the top rings on from the top and then bring it back down. But there's nothing wrong with the engine. The engine mount, oh my gosh, I don't know why it took them so long to come up with a V to put an engine into a saddle like in an MGA or an MGB or a midget. It sits on a rectangular block and then has a turnbuckle arrangement to it to keep the engine from swinging left and right, which once the rubber bushings fail, the engine bangs back and forth and makes the throttle position difficult because the throttle isn't a cable, it's a lever. That as the engine moves, then the car accelerates or decelerates, and it also isn't very good on the back end. Sometimes the bolt which holds the gearbox in place shears, or it's come loose, so the rubber's gone, and the whole engine and gearbox shift back and forth. And since the clutch pivots on the sump, who came up with these ideas? Then sometimes releasing the clutch can be dicey, and the car will chatter just insufferably. because of the bad mounts. But that's all sorted out by the MGA. The ignition is straightforward. It's a DKY distributor. They went to a DM something or other a little bit later in the TF. It's a pretty straightforward distributor. It doesn't have a vacuum advance. They didn't add that on until the MGA. And vacuum advance is just a crude attempt at efficiency. So you don't need a vacuum advance. Race cars don't have vacuum advance. Anyway, none of the T types have a vacuum advance, but they do have a gear on the bottom. So you have to put the distributor back in the right position. Once you take it out, it's like, uh-oh, where should it go? There's a very clear set of instructions in section B in Bravo in your workshop manual that tells how to put the distributor back in. But the number one spark plug wire should leave the distributor cap at 6 o'clock, and then the rest of them are 1, 3, 4, 2, just like all the other MG engines, except the MGC or the V8, of course. The cooling system is straightforward. It's got a massive radiator on it. The TC and TD are not pressurized. They don't have to be pressurized, not until it gets really, really hot. But by the TF, they put a 4 pound cap on it, which raised the boiling point up to in the 220-degree range. I think an extra pound. You get an extra 3 degrees of boiling for every pound on the cap. So that's 12 degrees on 212. So you're up to 200, and if my math is correct tonight, 226 plus even more if you're running antifreeze in there, which you should. Lots of the people in California and down south don't use antifreeze. Fair enough. You don't need it because you're not going to freeze, but it does help in the cooling to put coolant in the car. We talked a little bit about the clutch. They got two different clutches on the T types. There's a smaller one, 7 1/4 inch, and then they go to an 8 inch clutch, which they kept all the way up through 1980 on the MGB. The clutch discs, if the internal splines were the same, would work all the way through. They changed the number of splines on the first motion shaft between the 1961 and 1962 MGAs. It went to an involute spline, which remains all the way the same through the end of production in 1980. But the early ones have got a little smaller clutch on them. The gearboxes, the TC gearbox is dynamite, dynamite. You look in the Moss catalog, there's hardly a part available for sale for them. Things like gears and synchros and sliding hubs. Bearings, of course, are still available. But that's because they don't go bad. They just don't go bad. And the TD TF gearboxes, I just heard from John Esposito at Quantum Mechanics, and he has repaired lay gears for the XPEG and XPEG for the TD and TF. He's got those available. Norman Knock had repaired lay gears available for Austin Healey's for a long time, probably still have them from British Car Specialists in Stockton, California. But Esposito now has these T-type lay gears available, which have been repaired. The second, third, and constant mesh have remained the same, but the first gear, which is always where it fails, has been added on, welded on. It looks like a real nice job. He sent me a picture of one the other night. There's a lot of rattling out of the remote controls. You get a lot of chatter out of the remote control assemblies on the T-types. The remote controls are really long. An MGB 3 synchro doesn't even use a remote control. MGB 4 synchro does. MGA uses a very short remote control, but the T-type ones are really long. Shafts are 1/2 inch. Everything's worn out. It all chatters and wobbles. If you're using a wooden gear shift knob, that'll exacerbate that chattering problem. All you need to do is spin that wooden gear shift knob off, squirt some silicone up inside, and screw it back on, and sometimes just that by itself will get rid of some of the chatter out of that gear lever. Drive shaft is huge. It's long. It's much larger in diameter on the TC, TD, and TF than it is on the later cars. On the MGAs and the MGBs, turned out you didn't have to have one quite so big and heavy. Of course, anything big and heavy turning at engine speed, 3,600 RPM or something or other, will cause a tremendous vibration in the body if anything is wrong, if anything's out of balance. The rear axles, the TC has a bevel gear on the differential, and that was improved dramatically. They went to a hypoid gear on the TD and TF. Those are really nice, but they're so low geared. The TDs came out with a 5.125 differential. An MGB, for instance, has got a 3.9 diff in it. Um, and this is all a combination of what the manufacturer thought the cars were going to be driven at, how fast you want to accelerate, and what your top speed is going to be. So a T-type, an original T-type with a 5.125 diff in first gear, it's a stump puller. I mean, boy, you don't go anywhere very fast, and you can wind the engine out. Get up to 4,500, 5 grand on that engine, which is tops, and you're still only doing, I don't know, 55 miles an hour or something or other. A lot of people switch and put in a 4.5 is a common switch. Why switch to a 4.5 when you can switch to a 4.3 from an MGA? Or some people go to a 4.1, and some people have even gone to a 3.9. But you can't do that if you're driving on hills with just a stock T-type engine. If the T-type engine's putting out a lot of power, then you can get a 3.9 in there. You put a blower on it, something like that. But the 3.9's great out on the road, but the engine hasn't got enough energy to push the car up hills until you change down into third or worse into second. So anyway, the steering's rack and pinion. It's the same steering as on a 1980 MGB. Well, it's not the same parts. No single part swaps over. Interestingly, the rear wheel bearing on a TD and TF fits a 1980 MGB, interestingly, but there's nothing on the rack and pinion that'll swap over. But it's the same idea made by Cam Gears. It's a great, I mean, rack and pinion. Alec Issigonis with his invention of that front suspension is just far and away superior to any of the competitors at the time, the Healey's or the Triumphs. So it's a really great system. The front suspension is the same on a TD as it is on a 1980 MGB. Well, not exactly, of course. The kingpins on the MGB are better, but the A-arm's the same part number, AAA something or other, same bushings, same all kinds of stuff on the TD as there is on the 1980 MGB. So it's the same system up there. Some people would choose to switch. They'd say, well, I'm going to put disc brakes on my TD, and I'm going to switch it to wire wheels. So at that point, you can put an MGB front suspension on your TD or your TF. The TC has got a solid front axle. It's got a crappy steering. You don't steer a TC, you only aim it. But you can take your hands off the wheel on a TC, and the caster is so great that you can drive for miles without barely touching the wheel. It's a whole different suspension. That solid front axle and leaf springs on the front. The frame on the TC isn't a box. It's not a rectangular box. It's just a C-section, and it's designed to move. It's designed to twist and turn as the car twists and turns. So the TD/TF is just a whole lot better. Shocks on the cars are the same as well. They went through some Girling shocks in the early shocks, and they went to Armstrong shocks. Those are the same shocks, same style of shocks that you find on an MGB. And I just had a guy ask me today where to send those to get those rebuilt. And my preferred location for rebuilding shocks is Worldwide Imports in Madison, Wisconsin. The brakes are Lockheed. The TC has got an older type of brakes on them with a single cylinder front and rear on each side. The TD uses two cylinders in the TDTF uses two cylinders in the front, one cylinder in the back. I showed the picture when it came out from the constant contact of getting those cylinders upside down. You can't do that on any car but the TD or TF. On the MGA, it's really hard. You can't. You can do anything, but it's harder to do it on an MGA because the backing plates are stamped very clearly RH and LH, and the cylinders are designed in such a way that you cannot get them upside down. If you do have cylinders upside down, the car is still braking, but oh my gosh, your leg has to be about as big around as an elephant's leg to be able to develop the pressure to be able to stop the car. So all you have to do is look through the adjuster, look through the adjuster hole on the front of your TD or TF, and see that the adjuster, the micram adjuster that takes the screwdriver to adjust the brake shoes, is lying on the bottom side of the front cylinder. If that's the way it is, that's as good as it gets. If it's on the other side of the cylinder, your brakes can be improved dramatically. So, um, electrical and instruments. The earlier T types had chronometric instruments that move jerky. That's just the way that they do. Later on, they're magnetic and they float. It's very, very nice. Um, there, there's there's still an ammeter. It's too bad because it's just a place that's ripe for problems. And if you switch your battery and make your car modern, make it negative ground, then the ammeter is reading backwards. Unless, of course, somebody hooked the ammeter up backwards to start with. But that's just something you gotta get through. It's real creepy. That's a big heavy wire that comes up behind the dash, carrying a lot of current. Everything that runs, not the starter motor, but everything else. Eventually, not the horns either, but everything else runs through the ammeter. It's unnecessary. It's left over from the earlier cars where you had to be staring at the dashboard the whole time you were driving to make sure that you were neither undercharging nor overcharging your battery. But once they went to the automatic control box, the RB340, then that ammeter was unnecessary. The Triumphs have got voltmeters in them. That works fine. But the ammeters are creepy. I don't. Having said that, I can't tell you that I've seen a lot of fires or anything from the ammeter, but it's just all that current going up behind the dash. It seems awful. They eventually put turn signal box on the later TDs and the TFs because you've got two filaments on one side and the back that have to do three things. It has to come on when you turn the taillights on. It's got to come on when you hit the brake pedal, and it's got to wink when you're going into the turn signal mode. You've only got two filaments, so you have to separate the two systems, the brake the brake and the turns. You got to separate them side to side. So there's that great big box with, well, that big, with eight connectors to it. The Lucas relay box that's got two double pull, double throw relays on the inside of it. The YT, the YT only got partway there, and when you hit the brakes on a YT, if it's got turn signals, then the front parking lights light up extra bright too when you hit the brakes. So I guess somebody coming at you would know that you're hitting the brakes. The wheels and tires the TC is all on its own. It's all ancient. It's 19-inch wire wheels. I mean, it's got the classic look. And then when they went to the TD, the factory said, well, here, we got these disc wheels. They're lighter, they're stronger, they're better. We're going to put disc wheels on the TD. And everybody said, no, where's our wire wheels? We want the classic look of wire wheels. So they brought the wire wheels back on the TF, and you can take those pieces from the TF and retrofit them to the TD because the suspension is the same and get wire wheels there. By the time we get to the TDTF, we've got 15-inch tires, which were common with Volkswagen Beetles at the time. Our tires were 550 15s, and the Volkswagen Beetles were 560 15s, but they were interchangeable. Now, of course, everybody buys radial tires. You don't buy a bias ply anymore unless you want that authentic, classic look and not so good handling. The 15-inch are just great, and they even reduced the tire size more on the MGB to 14-inch. Of course, they changed the differential also to account for that. Lubrication and maintenance, you've got a workshop manual, you've got an owner's handbook. All that information is in there. You use 90 weight gear oil in the differential. Well, I actually use real high thick stuff in the TC. I think it's up around 140, 160 SAE gear lube, but on the hypoid, use 80, 90 in the differential and 80, 90 in the gearbox and 80, 90 in the rack and pinion and 80, 90 in the carburetors. So you only have to buy the high zinc engine oil for the engine. And remember that the TD and TF, the later ones, have got a 6-quart sump, 6 quarts. So it's even more expensive to go through an oil change. Tuning is just so straightforward. If you don't have the tune-up information, you can go on the website, universitymotors.online, and look up the tuning information. It's just an old car. I just talked to a guy today, and he wanted to put a timing light on his TD, and I said, well, you can, but you can just use a 12-volt test light, just like it says in the workshop manual. He says, well, how do I know it's going to be 32 at full mechanical advance? I said, because the distributor's got a 16-degree advance in it. Those are 16 distributor degrees. You double that, you get 32 on the crank. And so you can static set it at 0 and have 32 degrees at full mechanical advance where you're supposed to be. Special tools, that's always an issue with the cars. The T-types, they're all British thread. Everything is British thread, except the engine and gearbox, which are metric, and except anything having to do with oil or water, or oil, water, something else. Come on, gasoline, and that's all British Standard pipe, which needs British tools. So if you have a T-type, you gotta have British tools. You can find them on eBay. You can find brand new ones and sets probably on Amazon. And then the little tiny bolts and nuts are BA. We have when you get down to below quarter of an inch in America, and then we go to number 10 screw or number 8 or number 6 or number 4, but they don't use those designations in England. They use BA for British Association. So all the small stuff it has a reverse order. So right underneath quarter inch, we've got 2BA. There's a 0 and a 1BA, but 2BA is the most common one. That equals a 1032. Fortunately, it's the same, almost the same. Certainly 100% interchangeable with a 1032 thread that you can buy at the hardware store. So anyway, the TD went over to half-inch American, oh my gosh, what half-inch course is half-inch 13? I can't think of what half 18. It went to American threads on the wheel lugs real early on. So the earliest TDs have got BSF lug nuts, but then the later ones have got American thread on them. And right at the end of TF production, right at the end, the whole rear axle, the whole rear axle goes to American thread. Why? Why? The last couple thousand cars go to American thread. It's just weird. Anyway, they made 10,000 TCs, 30,000 TDs, and 9,600 TFs, which gives us about 50,000 T-types worldwide. Most of those are off the road, of course. But there is a club, the New England MGT Register in this country, that you want to belong to if you've got a T-type. As I write over and over, their power numbers and efficiencies and scale. So you want to belong to the New England MGT Register. They've got a lot of information that's available, technical books, all kinds of stuff, and there's the social component to it too. So you can find them, New England MGT Register, founded by Dick Knudsen and Frank Churchill, I think 1964, in Massachusetts or wherever Dick was teaching at the time. I think Frank was from Maine. So they're both passed away now, but the club continues on. So it deserves your membership. That's what I have to say about T-types. You either like the style or you don't, square riggers. I did say that in my comment, was when I got involved with MGs, the real MG people sniffed at the TFs. Oh, hasn't got a square radiator. Yeah, they look at that thing. Well, now, today, TF is worth as much as a TC. TF's a beautiful car, sleek and intermediate car that was banged up real fast because they weren't allowed. The MG company wasn't allowed to bring out the MGA until a couple of years later because they were already making a car, the Healy 104, which looked. I mean, help me out. You put them 100 yards away across a parking lot and they look exactly the same. They don't look the same right up close, but close to it. So anyway, that TF came out later on, but now it's fully accepted by the T owners and revered. They're nice looking cars, nice looking cars. Anyway, those are my comments. So I'm going to open it up. If you got a question about a T-type, your T-type, please ask it, and we'll do that. And then from there, we'll go over to the chat.
I have a question about the Mark II, TD, 52
Yeah.
TD Mark II. What's the difference?
So the shock absorber salesman got to the factory and said, "Hey, we got all these Andrex shocks. Why don't you guys buy them and put them on your car so your car doesn't have 4 shocks, it's got 8." And the Andrex shock is steel plates with teak wood sandwiched between them, and that runs a 90 weight gear oil. And it's just jammed together. You can adjust how tight they are, and they're just friction shocks. They're friction. So under heavy load, they can get hot. But so you got 8 shocks, and then you got 2 fuel pumps. Ooh, 2 fuel pumps, twice the chance of failure, right? So you got 2 fuel pumps, and then you got large carburetors. So you got the 1.5 inch carburetors, which it's grossly over carbureting that engine. There's no need for 1.5 inch carburetors. It runs a whole lot better on 1.5 inch. So it's got a unique air manifold. Um, the TD is the only car that I know of, the only MG I know of, certainly post-war, that has an oil bath air cleaner. Adam, help me out. Does that Y type have an oil bath air cleaner? Geez, the Magnet does, doesn't it? So I'm all wet here. Anyway, the T type, the TD has an oil bath air cleaner, which is just the best air cleaner you can possibly get. But the air takes this circuitous route to get into the carburetors. It's just not efficient at all. It goes through all these 90-degree angles. Oh my gosh. Um,
The Y type does have an oil bath.
Okay.
And I was working on a neighbor's 56 Chevrolet Bel Air that had an oil bath.
All lawnmowers used to have oil bath air cleaners too.
Yeah.
It's the best air cleaner you can possibly get, and it's always, the air always has to get through that wire mesh, which is covered in oil, which pulls out the particulates. And then when you turn it off, all that stuff settles back out. The dirt gets caught in the bottom of the oil bath air cleaner. So anyway, you ask about the TD Mark II. So and there's some badges. There's some badges. Does it go any faster? The car magazines at the time, gave it another horsepower or two on top of the existing XPAG engine. But if you go into an XPAG engine and do porting and polishing, jack the compression up from 7.25 up to like 9-1 or something, you can get a lot of power out of that engine, which is not reflected in that TD Mark II. So there
There's a
aren't
lot
very
of
many
research.
of them. Originally, when I wrote an article for the New England MGT Register in 1973, at that time it was established that there were like 1,800 of them, but I think that number is changed a lot now. I think there might be several thousands of them. Just it had to do with interpreting some data, and the factory records are gone. The factory destroyed all those records, all the MGA records from the MGA all the way on, and I don't know about the Y types, but the T type production records all went in the bin. So
Hey, John,
yes,
the stuff I read about it was that the Mark II added like 6 horsepower, and your thinking is 6 horsepower. Why bother? But then when you
oh,
think about it, it's 10%.
six
So
on six on well, six on
yeah,
what?
on
45?
54 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, you're talking a little over 10%, which
yeah,
which is
yeah.
significant, But in these days of high horsepower, when you hear a number like, "Ooh, you get 6 more horsepower," it's like, so what? So what?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway,
Thank you.
I
Thanks.
have new respect for TDs. They are tough cars. Because we worked on one that sat in a field under a cover for 33 years. I called you and asked you, should I take the job? And you said, well, if the engine turns over, it'll start. It's an MG. And it did. We had to replace a lot of stuff, even the whole complete interior, because there were things living in it, things living in the exhaust and stuff. But anyway, we got it all done, went to start it, and it wouldn't start. And I touched the carburetor linkage and it was hot. I said, there's no ground in this car. It sat in a field for 33 years because when they put the clutch in, they put everything back together, they put the ground from the body to the frame instead of to the engine. As soon as I put a big screwdriver in to make a temporary ground, after 33 years, it just kicked off immediately. I was very impressed. So
It's
so
a
was
real simple engine,
yeah.
simple ignition, and simple carburation. Yep.
Yeah, it was. I was afraid to take on the job, but after talking to you, yeah, my lawnmower is more complicated, I think.
With all the safety stuff on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. More T-type questions.
not it's me again, Eric in Austin.
Yeah.
Not a question, just an observation. So I've had trouble for a long time with my carburetors on my TD leaking at the jets, and I've changed to new cork seals, soaked them in oil. I tried the little Teflon rings, and I just can't get them to stop leaking. So I finally decided to take the plunge and buy the expensive super dry jet kits. And it seems to have fixed it, at least for now. When I pull in the garage, it only smells like an old car. It doesn't smell like gasoline.
Okay.
Uh,
Are
but
is that are those the brand new ones that Curto's offering?
I did not get them from Curto. Now Moss off or has them, and it's not just a little rubber seal. It's the upper jet bearing, the lower jet bearing. Um, it's everything except the jet itself. It's flat washers instead of curved washers.
Okay.
And the spring in between them and everything. but it seems to have done the trick. But my observation is that Moss here in America wants $140 for one kit. So they're expensive. So I checked it with Berlin over in England, and I could get the two jet kits, the two super dry jet kits, plus the 3 rubber parts extra if I want to change the rubber parts down the road somewhere. And even with the shipping for something that'll fit in a padded envelope was like 55 pounds. So that's like $70.
What?
But it was still $50 cheaper than buying them from Moss.
Okay.
It ended up being like $220 all in, as opposed to $280 from Moss just for the jet kits without any extra rubber parts. So just FYI, it's worth checking with Berlin, or for other parts, or it's worth checking in England. Even though the shipping was extremely high, it still saved me significantly.
Oh my gosh, yes. I just got a note from Glenn. I was going to see if I could come up with it here from Glenn Lenhard from Glenn's MG Repair in St. Petersburg, Florida, and he was touting Curto's new Viton rubber seals that go on the existing jets, and
Okay.
he was pretty excited about those. Of
That
course,
may be what this is. They call them the super dry
okay,
jet
all right,
kit. It's
okay,
it's got to be better than dry because it's super dry. So
super, yeah. It's not just dry. It's
not
not
just
just
dry,
dry.
super dry.
Super dry.
So
Yeah. Okay.
anyway, just wanted to share.
Thanks. I still use the graphite impregnated cork seals. They're not perfect, but you know that they'll work, and you know that the jet will move up and down effortlessly, so you can start the car. I started using a cable abutment. You know how the linkage comes down on the T-type and holds the choke cable, and the choke cable can slip in there and everything. And I started using a cable abutment that you would find on an MGB choke assembly. In that it's not original, but oh boy, it's really nice. This is just an aside. I forgot to mention this. And we've got 100. We haven't. It's not a big group on tonight, but I've got a set here of MGA carburetor. Excuse me, MGA factory in the box high compression pistons, and I don't need them. I'm never going to use them. I want them to go to someone who can use them. Look at how cool the top is on that, huh? Oh, look at that. And these are factory pistons. So if anyone's interested, MGA, high compression, something like 10 to 1 or something, high compression pistons, please get in touch with me. Not now, but tomorrow. And because I'd like to find them a new home. Sorry, it was just a side note. So
So
Hey, what do you
what,
guys do about this time of year with your gas getting heated? When you driving around and you get
that
out,
is
10
that
minutes later you
is
can't restart the car for a while. I mean, I carry the bottle of water and everything, but
you
what are some
know
other ideas?
that's it's very frustrating. If you can find non-alcohol gasoline, that is one of the secrets. Some states have it. Like all the corn states, Iowa, Kansas, you can buy that stuff everywhere. You go to other places like California, I don't think you can buy non-alcohol gasoline in California. They first of all, what was that stuff, Adam? What was that stuff they put in the gasoline to start off with? BTM, oh, it's terribly poisonous. It's an oxygenator, and that anyway, that's what alcohol.
yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but it's probably part of the summer blend, which we're on right
Yeah.
now.
So anyway, that's one thing you can do is get the non-alcohol gasoline, and the other one is to let your engine ventilate. You've got 3 reasons that the gasoline in the float bowls boils, and that's heat, that's conduction, convection, and radiation. So there's no conduction. There's no conduction to heat. Remember, the carburetors are ice cold when they're running. They're ice cold because they're evaporating. They got to draw heat from someplace. So there's no heat that comes up through the carburetor and warms up through the float bowl. That's not a consideration. You got radiation that comes off the exhaust manifold. That is an issue. T-types have no um, um, heat shield on them at all. You can buy a heat shield. Those are helpful. People have told me they can be helpful. I don't know if you can buy them in this country. Brown and Gammons have them in England. Brown ampersand Gammons. And other people do too. I think you can get those. Those will help. And of course, the T-type um, bonnets are ventilated. The TD, TC, and TD are ventilated pretty well. The TF isn't as well ventilated, but if you have to, you just got to open up the bonnet and just let it cool down because it's the boiling gasoline that's causing it. Nothing you can do with ignition timing. There's nothing you can do. Glenn says he's got a technique in Florida where he holds the throttle wide open and cranks it, and it'll start. I've had other people say, "Oh, you unscrew the dampers on the top of the carburetor, angle them, lift them, so you lift the air pistons up. That leans out the carburetors just dramatically. Of course, you got to have two people now. And once it starts, it instantly starts to cool down, and maybe it runs like crap for 30 seconds or a minute, but then it clears up. It's a problem that we all suffer.
One thing you can do for finding non-ethanol fuel is potentially go around gas stations near lakes, because a lot of them have premium that is non-ethanol for the outboard engines.
Thank you. Thank you.
John, that kind of leads into my first comment on the chat side. This is Judd.
Yes.
How you do? The picture up there is a fantastic, wonderful day in April of 2012. You had a similar picture on your announcement. So
That's why I figured you had that one up. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've been working on that car because it overheated horribly when I bought it for a long time, and I talked to you about it and so on and so forth. Well, it's 95 degrees every day here. We've been driving regularly uphill both ways, not quite 70. I can run a good steady 66, 67 on the speedometer, and it'll never go over 90 degrees C on the temperature gauge now. Before, I couldn't have done that for 5 minutes. It would have been boiling.
Sure.
I sat at a traffic light in Hendersonville last week, and it was 95 degrees, and it was the longest damn traffic light I think I've ever sat at. And the temperature went up from about 82 to 91 and just sat there. And so what I've done is, number one, got the block totally cleaned out. Number two, got the radiator totally cleaned out. Number three, and I'm not sure this was that critical, but I put the yellow MGB 7-way fan on, and I bought the improved water pump from what's his face, FTFU, to go on the front. And I'm driving the heck out of it. This is the best summer I've ever had with it. And I'm driving the heck out of it. And I've had it, at least on the speedometer, I don't know what the real speed is, but I've had it over 70 miles an hour for extended periods in 95-degree weather. It gets up to 90, it just sits there. So
So what happens? What happens when you stop at the party?
There, to the gentleman's question, when you stop and you go in and you have lunch and you're not that one. I mean, if it's only a 10, 15-minute stop and you come back out, I got to pull the choke. And like you just said, it's going to run like crap for about a minute. Just sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And then it clears up.
Yep. So you pull the choke out.
I pull the choke to start it.
To enrichen it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that seems to do it. But I mean, usually even if I've had it parked overnight and started in the morning, in most cases, I don't hear the starter motor. It just pull the knob, and it's
Yep.
like that. But I do pull the choke first time I start every day
Yes.
on warm days.
Yep. Yep. That's the way it's supposed to work. Yep.
So
Yeah.
this phenomenon's happening after you stop.
After you stop.
Yeah,
I understand.
so-
Yep.
Oh, the
Right.
engine when that car is running and the cooling system is working, it's not a problem. And also you're flowing fuel, and as John says, it's basically an air conditioner. You're evaporating that fuel, and that's a thermodynamic cooling system.
Kurto's got those socks. They're I call them asbestos. Of course,
Yeah.
nothing's asbestos anymore, but there's some kind of sock that goes over the float bowl. Some people have used those. Again, it's all about keeping the heat away from the float bowl. So
I think the big thing is if your engine is overheating that much. It used to be when I would turn my engine off, the temperature gauge would go up to, oil pressure.
yes,
Now, when I turn it off, if let's say it's at, I really run the crap out of it, it's up around 90 C. Then I turn it off, it'll go to 95, 98, and that's as far as it goes.
okay,
So get your cooling system working. And if it isn't working, it's not that it's inadequate, it's that something's wrong.
okay.
All right.
John, I've
Yes.
used those. I've got those koozies, I think he calls them, on the C and the TD. They
Yeah.
seem to be working.
Okay.
I put them on there long. And one other, I know people were talking about buying from overseas. Be careful because they're starting to charge duty. I bought 2 tie rods for the B. Shipping was very expensive, and then I got a $29.62 duty affixed to the order before DHL would deliver. So be
Okay.
prepared for charges. I was surprised because my 2 tie rod ends, which are no longer available in the United States, cost me $87 total.
Okay.
That was the tie rods, the shipping, and the duty.
All right.
So be prepared. It's people are going to be in for a rude awakening here shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
John, this is Tony Rosella from New Jersey.
Yes, sir.
Just to let you know, there's a book that's out called Modern Fuels and Vintage Engines. Maybe I got that title backwards. Maybe it's Vintage Engines
yeah.
and Modern Fuels.
Yep.
In that book, Mr. Ireland, the author, funny his name is Ireland, said that he found that the real problem for boiling that ethanol fuel is that transfer tube between the fuel bowl and the carburetor. That's where he saw the red hot glow using an infrared camera.
Okay.
And so all the things you can do is just simply use airflow as much as possible. So when you hear people saying they're putting electric fans in, that's the best thing you can do. I have a TF 1500, constantly had problems with overheating. And so, especially in hot weather, and especially if I get stuck at a traffic light.
Yep.
Well, that was embarrassing. So once I got the electric fan in, then what I did was I also hooked up the switch so that I can actually have it run constantly, even when the engine's not on. So if I go for lunch in the afternoon, I just flick that little switch and let that fan run while I'm inside having lunch. When I come out, car starts right up, no problem.
Thank you.
You have a
Okay.
picture of that we could look at?
I'm not handy, but I can get it to you later.
All right.
What you'll do is send me the picture, and I'll put it out in the next. I'll put it out our next constant contact. So you got that sitting on the front side of the radiator, then pushing the air through it.
No, I have it on the backside.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And I took off the fan. I don't have a fan blade at all. I just
Okay.
use just the electric fan. Yeah, I went modified. I just
Hey.
it's the only way I can enjoy the car.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I have a question in the chat when you get to it. So
Okay. All right.
So does that fan help the fuel problem, or are you just talking about a radiator overheat?
no, that's the
Fuel
fuel problem. That's
Okay.
a vapor
Yeah, I'd be
lock.
curious to see how you have that mounted.
Yep, it's a vapor lock issue. So it was very embarrassing. It almost looked like I didn't know how to drive.
Yeah. Yep. And then when it stalls, when you're in traffic and it stalls and it's hot, then
Yep.
you got to get out and you got to push it. Oh, it's just awful. It's just awful.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yep. So
Yeah,
anyway, so
John.
all right. Well, Judd's got that yellow fan. Judd, what? That's a Moss available part. It's the same on an MGB, but they're two different. I think there's two different bolt patterns on those yellow fans.
Yeah, I think I got it through Moss.
Okay.
And it came with a with the that metal that iron spacer.
Yes. Okay.
So I was able to sell the other spacer to somebody. I can't imagine why they wanted it. And,
Okay. All right.
anyway, but it seems to have improved.
Okay.
And I agree with what the gentleman was just saying, Rizzolo. I mean, you could almost take a 12-volt computer fan with you and hook it up with to your dashboard, red and black holes in the dashboard, and step that under it when you go to lunch. Anything to get air moving.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, John, this is Steve Ellis here from Macungie, Pennsylvania.
Yes, sir.
I also was having a problem with the fuel boiling out of the fuel bowls, which I had some time ago, and they told me that that doesn't happen. But anyway, it does. And I came up with an insulator that I took a pool noodle, if you know what those are, the kids use them in the swimming pools.
Yep. Okay.
They make one that is a larger hole inside, diameter is larger. Now it's still not large enough. I had to make it a little bit larger, and I slip it up over the fuel bowl.
Okay.
And I hold it, it's held in place with it simply with a zip tie.
Yep.
And then
This is like these yeah, these socks that Kurt
yeah,
was selling. Yep.
but
Okay.
it's thick enough, and the bottom hole is open. So I just took a piece of the noodle and shoved it in there to secure it.
Sure.
And I consider it a traffic light. Now we have really hot weather going on here right now, but I consider it a traffic light. And before it used to, you know, spit, burp, fart, carry on, and you couldn't get out of its own way. I have no issues at all with the fuel evaporating out of there.
Thank you.
I can drive all around. I was just at a car show over the weekend, and it was really hot, and it fires right as soon as you shut it off. It fires right back up, which I
Very
used to
nice.
have a problem trying to start it as soon as you shut it off.
Sure.
But since I've done that, I mean, they look kind of stupid, but I don't really care because I'm not having an issue.
Okay.
What really makes them look stupid is they're orange, and that
Yeah,
was
that
the
sounds
color.
pretty horrible.
Yeah, that's the color I could find, and
Yeah.
yeah, they look real nice on my yellow MG. But again, you know, I can drive around, and I don't have any issues with it, so it
And not
works for
worried
me.
about them melting or anything? I guess not, huh?
I've been keeping an eye on them. I do keep an eye on them, and no, I haven't had any problem. And I have a header on it as well, which I know John really likes that.
Yeah, I really like headers.
Yeah, I know you do, but no, I haven't had any issue with it melting or anything like that. I keep them up away from the header as far as I can, and like I say, with the chicken band thing on there, keep that tight, and it they don't vibrate off or anything. It stays pretty much in place right where I put them. So and again, it really does a job for me. I haven't had any problem since I put them on, ever since I made them.
Thank you. Thank you. All
Yeah,
right. So do we have any more T-type comments? Otherwise, I'm going to switch over to chat here.
Yeah, I got
Hey,
one.
John?
Yeah. Oh, here's Skip. Go ahead. Go ahead, Skip. Oh, you're muted though. So you gotta hit your space
Sorry.
bar. There we go.
You talked about the oil on air filter meshes.
Yes.
What about the older canister type on
Those are also oil wetted, and your job is to squirt oil on those frequently. So
anything special or just
No, just any oil, any oil's fine. If you buy the K&N oil, at least it's aerosol. That's the advantage. It looks like Marvel Mystery Oil, with a methane propellant or something in it. You can squirt it on there and get a nice coverage. But all those air filters that are wire mesh only work when they're covered in oil. So that's the TF and the TC, or in your case the TB, and the MGAs. Although I just worked on an MGA the other day, and they had felt filters in there, and if you put oil on a felt filter, they get about that big. And no air gets through them. So it only works on the wire mesh. You get oil the wire mesh, but you just have to do it yourself. Makes a mess, just an awful mess.
You clean it
Hey,
with
John?
gasoline or something?
You can, yeah. It says, matter of fact, on the MGA ones, um, wash in paraffin, wash in kerosene, and then re-oil. So yes, yep,
Hey, John, it's Bart.
yes, sir.
I got a comment on the hot carburetors and the boiling fuel
Oh
problem.
yeah, Barney.
On my MGA, I've got a little 3-inch bilge blower fan stuck in the air duct right in front of the carburetor, blowing air on the carburetors.
Okay.
I only use it in really hot weather, but the hotter the weather gets, you get stuck in stop and go traffic or something. Flip the little bilge blower on, blow cool air on the carburetors, no problem at all. And I use it when I go to the gas station. If I come off an expressway with a hot engine, pull into a gas station, shut it off, fill it up, put the little blower on when I'm putting gas in the car. Starts right up afterwards. No more
Bingo.
boiling oil problem.
The MGC was delivered with those. The American spec MGCs had a blower with a little thermistor on the little switch on it when it got hot enough that fan came on. So yeah, thank you. So we got we
That
got
was
um
that it that MGC had a really huge blower. It looked like a squirrel cage blower out of a Healy or a midget or something.
it yeah, it was yeah. So Judd's got the yellow fan. Um, Mr. Rizzo, didn't get the name quite right. Has got the electric cooling fan. We've got the socks, as exotic as noodles out of the swimming pool, and we've got your bilge pump idea. So somewhere in there, if you want to go non-original, so your car will drive. Although today in Grand Rapids, I think when I left the house it was 64. So this cool air is coming eastward. We just got over I'm sure there's hot air coming behind it again. Anyway, any more comments about T types?
Yes,
Yes.
picking up on several of the things that were discussed. One is I misspoke. I actually have an oil screen air cleaner, not an oil bath air cleaner on the
Okay.
one type
All
to
right.
correct that. Secondly, for whatever reason, the car is pretty tolerant to the heat. Maybe having the single carburetor, maybe the way the manifold's structured, not sure. But as you know, it gets pretty darn hot out here in the San Fernando Valley. And generally, she behaves pretty well in the heat with no special anything. And there's no temperature gauge, so no worries, right? But the previous owner assured me that that was a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, if you don't know what the temperature is, you can't obsess about it.
Yeah, hasn't been a problem yet. Hopefully, it won't become one. I do have an issue with being able to get the choke jet does tend to hang up especially if she's not driven for a few weeks. Is there a stiff version of the cable, a rigid cable, or are they all bicycle?
No, they're
steel
all
flex cable?
bicycle, because of the spring on the carburetor is designed to pull that lever back up.
It
So
does almost, it does, but the spring goes to full compression, coils touching, and it appears to be the right spring. but it doesn't leave any tension left when it's closed.
Oh, well, that's yeah.
So
Then
maybe I just need to shorten the
that's
spring
an
slightly.
that's an AUC 3667. God, how would I know that? Um, you want yeah, you got to get a shorter spring.
Okay. And then you said you had like a trick using the or MGB piece
The
to guide
cable
the cable.
abutment 375 something or other. So you look on the on like in Moss on the MGB air cleaner page with it shows the cables and stuff like that. And there's an abutment, the cable goes up into the abutment and the inner cable comes through it. And it's got
Oh, I know
a
which piece you're talking about
okay, all
because I
right,
have it on the GT.
right. Yep.
I know which piece you're referring
And
to. Okay.
that's in the cable goes right into it and it holds it, it's not slipping around, and you can put, you can put a couple washers and a split pin through the back of it. Looks, who would know it wasn't original, except me. Um,
Right. What was the part number for that spring AUG?
Oh no, AUC 3667, but that's a factory. That's nobody uses those numbers anymore. And if you call Joe Curto and give that number to him, he says, "What? Quit fooling around. What do you want?" So yeah, but you might be able to take that spring and
I should be
take
able
a
to just
pair of
shorten it.
pliers and bend it up and clip it and just make it a little bit short. That's pretty weird though that spring's too long.
Yeah, and it works most of the time, but then it gets
No,
just a bit.
when you're adjusting the carburetors and you make a difference between one flat lean and one flat rich, it's that fine that is 6, 7 thousandths of an inch. That's all that a flat is, and because there's about 40 thousandths to a full turn, and so if that if that choke is down just well, if it's down just a little tiny bit, the car just runs so friggin' rich. And all you gotta do is just extra, just touch it, and it pops up, and then the thing runs perfectly again. So yeah, yeah.
Interesting. And then somebody commented on $55, 55 pounds for shipping or $55 for shipping. I don't remember which unit it was in.
Yeah, there was Tony talking about getting tie rod ends out of
Yeah, I just got, well, it was last year I got the shocks from the UK for the coilovers for the fast road kit because I had to replace those. And they were pretty heavy. I mean, it was a solid box, bigger and flatter than a shoe box. And it was about $60 for shipping. I know rates change, but yeah, for an envelope, that sounds pretty crazy. Sounds like they're messing with you.
Don't know.
What do you do?
Yep,
It
what do
it
you do?
it is possible to get stuff from the UK. I just had a gearbox for my MGB mailed out, and it's about $400, and duty turned into about 200, which was still cheaper than having it sent off to somebody here in the States to rebuild poorly again.
Okay.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, that's a big piece.
It's a big piece.
It
That's
was a big box and it was heavy.
yeah,
By
yeah.
the way, somebody's selling, if anybody's in the area, somebody posted on Facebook Marketplace, I think I saw it yesterday, an engine and gearbox for an MGB, and it was unremarkable, except he didn't mention the fact that the picture showed a gearbox that was an overdrive. And he wanted, I think it was 950 for both pieces. So if somebody's looking for an overdrive, that might be the deal of the day.
That might be. I'm gonna switch over to our um, chat section now after I make a brief pitch. If you haven't yet made your PayPal donation, we have operators waiting. Anyway, always appreciate those PayPal donations. I'm going to switch over now and start catching the stuff over here in the chat section because we got 26 questions. It said, found video number 76 helpful in low resolution. Any chance you can update that video? Oh, so Marty, that's one that we're going to have to work with to uh
Yeah,
oh,
that's spinning an overdrive unit to the gearbox.
Correct.
oh okay. All
I put
right.
the link just under there.
Well,
Oh,
no,
okay.
yeah,
All right.
that's the one that I looked at, and it was after a call to John to line up the splines inside the OD to get onto the thing. And
Yes.
oh, by the way, I did use a piece of string to pull the pump plunger
Okay.
to go back on, and that turned into a 3 second activity.
Okay. All right. So we do have a list. Marty's got a great big list of ones that I should do again. So thank you. Thank you. Okay. Judd says for the past month, I've had a bad vibration in the TD drive line. Inspection revealed that I had a really bad, just ready to totally fail U joint. That's the one that's up in his picture right now. Ordered a new one from Moss through Little British Car Company. I really like Jeff, so this is no diss on him or LBC options. Presented the GNK was $27. That was the price for the U-joint. The generic aftermarket was 13. I elected for the high price spread, thinking that it would be better. I don't know anything about low price options, but I don't buy the high priced item. It doesn't fit. Oh my gosh. So anyway, we finally had to grind off 3/4 of a millimeter from the end of each of the bearing caps to get them in far enough to reveal the groove that the snap ring goes in. Oh my gosh, that's not something I would ever do myself on a drive shaft because the center point on that drive shaft has to be exactly. But anyway, it what should have been about an hour job took all day and was frustrating. But Judd, your vibration must be gone. So
Totally gone. I
okay.
mean, I used to be shake your fillings out at 60. Now I'm smooth as a baby's butt at 70.
Okay, all right. I always look for a U joint that's got a grease zerk on it. Like
It's
to be,
yeah,
yep. Some of them are sealed for life.
yeah, that
Um,
was that's the one that's in the picture up there.
okay.
Was sealed for life, but I don't know. I guess that guy died
Well, it was sealed for life. So
for its life. Yeah.
okay,
I
so
mean, those nubs, you can't really see it in that picture, but those nubs are almost gone.
yeah, yep. I've got them. I've got them where they've twisted out before. So yeah, this that drive shaft is running at engine speed
Yeah.
in fourth gear, and it's just it's just oh my gosh.
Yeah,
So
you were talking in your intro. I mean, when I'm running 70 miles an hour, I'm turning 5 grand.
yep, yeah, I believe that.
You know, because that's the original, whatever you call it, low ratio
Yep,
rear end.
differential back there. Yep. All right, so Eric Gebhard says my car, my engine was in my car and producing excellent oil pressure. I had to replace the back crankshaft gasket, so I took the engine out and removed the sump. I got it all back together and back in the car, and for the life of me, I can't get oil pressure. Interesting. I've packed the oil pump and proven that the oil gallery is good after the oil filter. The only thing that it could be is the pickup. Nah, probably not. When I was putting it together, I was pretty careful about the oil hole coming through the sump gasket. So Eric, are you still on? Have
I
you?
am. Yep.
All right.
Yep. Sorry, John.
Okay. No, that's okay. And what year and model is this?
It's a 52 TD.
Okay. All right.
Happens to be a Mark II, which, as you said, doesn't mean anything.
Yep. So the only thing I can think of is that the, you
Now,
always
when
do
I
the,
say I packed the oil pump, I mean I packed it with grease.
okay. You always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first.
Yep.
So what I would have done, you got a horizontal or a vertical oil filter?
Uh,
Horizontal.
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 Yeah, it's
All
one of
right. There's
the new ones. I
okay.
did the conversion.
Okay. I there's a couple of brass fittings on top of the pump. I'd take those out and just fill those with oil. Just fill those with oil. Anything rather than having to take that sump back off.
Yeah.
But if there is the tiniest air leak in that gasket between the sump and the block, it's just gonna suck air. So sometimes you can fill the oil pump with oil, put the car in fourth gear, take the spark plugs out, and push the car backwards. And that'll screw the oil through the pump and back down through the gasket and down into the sump. And sometimes that's a way to start to get an oil pressure. Another way, what kind of seals do you have on that engine, on the crankshaft?
So it's got one of the Moss conversion seals.
Okay, you got to be careful here. I was going to suggest you take your blowgun and put it into the valve cover and blow into there. And have your thumb on the end that oil draft tube, so
Yeah,
the whole inside of the engine gets pressurized and it
right.
pushes the oil up into the oil pump. But if you've got that rear seal on there, that'll pop that rear seal out, and that's it's not worth that.
Yeah,
So. But I bet it's between the sump and the pan, that
yeah.
gasket.
That would be my guess. Just because, so I took there's a line going from the bottom of the block
Yeah,
up to the oil gauge. Took it off at the universal, filled it with oil, and I see it. I can see it at the one of the brass plugs near the oil filter. So I know that gallery is clear.
sure, sure. Well, you just got to get the oil through there. Usually, I never suggest anybody packing their pump with grease, but you just got to sometimes if you get the oil getting going through there, it'll stay through there.
Yeah,
Rather than um, um,
yep.
having to take the whole thing back apart again, but that may be what you got to do.
Damn.
Yeah. So I use gasket compound between the gasket and the block,
Yeah,
grease between the sump and the gasket.
really.
So the gas, so the so the, so the sump comes back off again real easily if
Yeah.
you have to take it back off again.
And I use gasket sealer on both sides.
So you gotta yeah, you really gotta clean it. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
rear cork that goes around around the block,
Right.
the saddle that holds the rear main
Yeah.
bearing, get that out of the kit and tighten it, get it as tight as you can. Make a little spiral, and then put electrical tape around it. Let it sit for a day. And then when you take the tape off, it only unfurls to like this, rather
Ah,
than starting with a flat piece and trying to get it up into place when it always pops out. So
huh.
start with one that's already got a pretty good sized curl in it.
And what I did was I soaked it in oil first, also. It was a cork gasket, but
Yeah,
I
I
soaked it in
wouldn't,
oil.
I wouldn't, because you want to use some gasket compound between it and the rear cap.
Yeah.
I'd do it dry.
Okay. All right.
Let me
Yeah,
know
you asked to come out of the car to take the sump off.
it's just a it's you just do it, but it's just, oh, you already did it once. There's got to
Yeah.
be some way, to screw that oil back down from the pump backwards.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you can take out enough plugs and just keep squirting oil in there and in fourth gear, plugs out, push the car backwards and screw it through the pump backwards, maybe it'll work. It's certainly
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if I had to take the sump off, do I have to take the engine out of the car?
No, it just comes right off. well, easy to say with a great big dead blow hammer
Yeah.
to get. Yeah, you don't have to take it out of the engine. No, you don't
Okay.
have to take the engine out of the car. Some comes right off.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hey, talk to me. Call me tomorrow or something. I'll ease your frustrations.
Thanks, John.
Okay. All right. So we got Ed Cook. Here we go. You can and should fuse the wire from the starter switch to the ammeter. Well, that's a good idea. This is on a T-type. Under the bonnet, before it gets to the dash on the TD and TF is much safer. It also can be done on the TC. Use a low amp uses low amp fuse as you can. Also, Quantum Mechanics is a gearbox specialist in Connecticut. But the only problem putting the fuse in there is that your headlamps go through there, right, Ed? So if it pops that fuse, you lose your headlights. But hey, it's an idea. Um, and David Basili says, how do guys who own MGT series cars drive their cars in today's motoring environment? How many miles did you get on your car this weekend, Judd?
Probably
Judd,
200. I
200?
I
Okay.
I avoid interstates. I drive anything else.
Okay.
I
All
can,
right. So
but
David,
I
Judd,
just avoid it.
it just, yeah, that's the trick. You just get in it and start driving. Yep. Yeah, I love the expressways. I love going fast. But in a T-type, unless you got a really powerful engine and a 3.9 diff, yeah, it'd be hard to stay up at 70, 80 miles an hour. So
Hey, in a T-type, 55 is fast.
yeah, yep.
John, we met a couple in Las Cruces, New Mexico with a T-type, and they have pictures of their T-type in front of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. Drive it all over the country. I imagine they don't go much on the freeways, but
Okay.
said it's fine. They enjoy it and have no problem.
Hey, so David, that's your answer. So Mr.
Got it.
Gray,
Thank you.
okay. Mr. Graves says, I just keep my TC to the little roads. Yep. And that's what Eric Gebhard says too. Once he gets his oil pressure back, I keep my TD on the back roads. It's lots of fun. It's not so hard. MTBE. Thank you, Tom. Um, yeah, that was the first thing that California tried to oxygenate the gasoline. And Marty's got a chart of colors for the 33 through 37 cars. That's nice. Here we go. And David Basili says, restarting the hot engine, hold the throttle to the floor and start cranking. It'll eventually start. That's what Glenn Lenhard says also in Florida, where it's really hot. So yeah, thank you. And Marty's got a note up about classic engines, modern fuel. And the guy that wrote that did all of his testing on, I think, a TC. It's a British book. The some of the modern books, they cheat. They cheat and they use a type font that uses as little ink as it possibly can to be barely readable. And this is one of those books. It's extremely physically hard, was for me to read it. Either the layout or I think it also has to do with the font in being able to read.
John, it was small, but it was an XPAG engine that he had lying around.
Okay, thank you. So, and Adam Lombard, you know what piece I'm talking about now. And David Sylvain said he bought a heat shield for his TD from Doug Pelton from the Frame Up in Phoenix, Arizona. So the T engines are all the same as far as the placement of the carburetors. So the heat shield for a TC, TD, TF, maybe got to do a little bit of fiddling on one or the other. Steve Olson, maybe a future Zoom could be on how various cooling systems enhancements work or don't. I use electric fans on my Midget 1500 to save horsepower as well as to cool better at idle. And an electric fuel pump near the tank helps with vapor lock. Yes, a Midget 1500 is the only car that we have which actually has vapor lock. And that is where the gasoline boils before it gets to the pump. Because they decided they'd put the fuel line over the top of the gearbox, right? Where it it gets so friggin' hot. Oh my gosh. I remember having to move those a couple of times. So and here's Dwayne Schmidt's got a link to from the frame up heat shield. So that's very nice. Thank you. Um, okay, here we got from Paul M. John, I bought a 53 TD completely disassembled, a stalled restoration. So I didn't have the advantage of taking it apart. For the radiator support between the frame rails, the holes in the radiator studs are off center. Are the holes to be closer to the front or the rear? Oh, I knew this once. When they favor the front, the studs are right over the steering rack and very hard to get the nuts on. Yes, yes, that I think that's the way it's supposed to be. It is very hard. You have to lift the radiator up, and there's two nuts. There's those are 3/8 British nuts, and you put the big nuts on first, and then there's a jam nut that goes on underneath that. In fact. The seams necessary to get the radiator straight up and not slanted to the front. I think, I don't, anybody know who's had a TD apart and can tell Paul M here which way that front member goes that holds the bottom of the radiator. Are the holes for the radiator towards the front or towards the back of the car? Okay, we got
Put it back, but don't remember.
I've done so many of them. I I don't know. I don't know.
By the
Frustrating.
way, I didn't put the nuts on. I figure I'm not going to do very many rolls or loops, and gravity's fairly dependable, and I haven't had a problem.
That's pretty good. I'd never ever leave those loose. Just because it's just bad technique, but you make a you make a point, you make a case for it, Judd.
Well, I've
Absolutely.
had to take the darn thing out 2 or 3 times,
Yep.
and I just don't see that it's necessary. I mean, you got those side braces. You can see them in that picture. They're holding it down. You got a bonnet that weighs 150 pounds. That's holding it down.
Yeah.
And like I said, gravity is fairly dependable.
Yep. Very, very, very good. Very good idea. Thank you. I'll keep that. I'll keep that in mind. Eric Van Note asked Ed Cook, what kind of fuse would you recommend starting for the ammeter? And Ed says 10 amp. Of course,
Whoa!
his headlights are LEDs. Well, of course. All right. So anyway, that's um, I don't know how much current those headlights pull, real headlights. But the horn on the later cars is wired not through the ammeter. And the first TDs, the TCs and the early TDs, it's the horn's wired through the ammeter, but then they changed that. Otherwise, it bends bends the needle on the ammeter when you honk the horn. So in the starter motor, yeah, the starter motor has oh my gosh, hundreds of amps. So it doesn't obviously it doesn't go through there. So let's see, Mr. Rosello, I think you skipped my question. Can you return back to my question, Tony? What did I miss?
It's right below. I put it back in.
Oh, thank you. I have a question about my TF 1500 clutch throwout bearing noise. Sometimes, not all the time, I get a banging noise from the clutch area. It sounds uh, like a rod banging. Just just physically, I'm having a hard time reading this here. Just a minute. So it's like a rod banging in the engine, but it is not the rod, the clutch rod that holds the fork. I know this because it happened when just a minute. Um, happens when I press the clutch. It stops when they let the clutch out. And this goes on until it stops after a couple of times. Oh, a rod banging. Oh my gosh. Might he have the wrong throwout bearing in there? Probably not. There are three different throwout bearings you can have inside a T-type gearbox. Only one of them's correct. But
But
you can fiddle.
so it's a 30%.
You can fiddle with those though. Well, it's this that there's the it has to do with where the pivot is on the in relation to in relation to the carbon face. And a 1275 midget is the most offset. You can use those. And then there's a 1098 midget, and then there's the T-type one. And depending, sometimes, if you got the smaller rod on the gearbox, but you've got the 8-inch clutch, then you have to use a longer throwout bearing. Um, and I'm trying to think what the banging noise would be.
Is it
Um,
rhythmic or is it random?
No, it's pretty rhythmic. It'll just go bang, 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 bang until I put the clutch in because it's scary as hell. Because it sounded to me at first time, it sounded like I threw a rod inside the engine.
oh,
And
I had something somewhat similar, and I would get a clattering and it would kind of come and go, and it would bang down there, and I thought something was coming apart. And I think what happened was a chunk of the carbon bushing broke off at some point, was banging around in there, and eventually got ground up and disappeared. And I haven't heard it since. That's been quite a while.
but why would that stop when you pressed on the clutch?
When you press on the clutch, you're not spinning
The throw bearing, but this piece is already chipped off it and
yeah, it's just bouncing around in the bell housing.
bouncing in the bell housing. Um,
I don't know. It's just the only thing
Yeah.
when you mentioned it, it kind of came to mind. It's like I remember that happening, and it lasted about a month and
well,
couple months.
can take the gearbox out from the inside of the car. You don't have to take the engine out. Um, Boy, if you could duplicate that while somebody was in the car and the car was on a hoist, and you could put your hand up there and feel, or put a stethoscope up there and listen. Oh my gosh. Do me a favor. I got to think about this, Tony. Call me tomorrow, just
okay.
during the day at your convenience, and let's talk a little bit more about this is the TF that's in your picture?
Yes, it is. The car runs great. Other than that, the car runs terrific. And also since I got that cooling problem fixed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a real nice idea on that cooling fan. Um, I cannot think of what is changing and why it's banging. And then once you're in gear, in moving it's not making that noise, right?
No, it doesn't. No.
So
It's
it's not it's not the flywheel.
no. Now, if I put the clutch in, the noise will start banging. I had let the clutch out perfectly fine. So it's just that it scares the hell out of you that
So it's when the clutch is depressed that you're getting the noise.
yes, when the clutch is depressed, I get that noise.
Oh.
At first, I thought maybe it was the fingers on the clutch plate. Maybe one of them was broken or loose or something, but I don't think that's it.
That would be, I mean, that engine's turning so fast that it's not a banging, but a sound, if the carbon from the release bearing is gone, and or metal against metal, it isn't so much of a banging as it is a grinding. So anyway,
No, it's not grinding.
let me think
It's
about this and call me tomorrow and just see if I can come
yeah,
up with something.
yeah. The only way I can say is I can duplicate it if I had a rod thrown in the engine. That's what it sounds like, a rod banging against a cylinder. I've
Jeez.
had I've had high performance engines, and that's what it sounded like. So it
Yeah, yeah,
scared the hell out of me.
yeah. So I was here. Marty's got a thing posted up here about David Capello, who I went to his house in Savannah and repaired his clutch in his garage. The floorboards had never been out. This car's in Savannah, Georgia. So I knew we were going to have trouble. So I brought along the taps and dies, and we drilled the heads out of every single screw in the floorboards, tapped the floorboards out because the floorboards are still okay. Got map gas, turned every single one of those bolts red hot, unscrewed it with vice grips. I can't begin to tell you how long this project took. Then we got the gearbox out. We're going to change the clutch, and it was a later TD, but somebody had refitted it with an earlier clutch flywheel. So we had to order a different clutch, or the other way around. I can't remember which. And then I said, well, as long as we got this far, we might as well change the front seal on the gearbox. I mean, it's just a rubber seal. It's real easy to change. So we took that off, and the cage, which held all the ball bearings on the first motion shaft, that had disintegrated. So all the balls were sitting at the bottom anyway. So we ended up rebuilding the gearbox. It was it was one of those um, one step forward and two steps back thing for a while. We got it done though.
Hey
So
Tony, did you ever put your hand on the gearbox or the bell housing? Maybe you can kind of feel where it's coming from.
No, I'm in the car, so it's that's not as easy for me to do. But I saw the one note somebody said, "Does it matter whether the car's in gear or not?" And the answer is no, it doesn't. As long as I've got that clutch pressed in, I'm hearing that noise. So
okay,
I would let the clutch in and out a couple of times, put the car back into neutral, let the clutch in and out a couple of times. Eventually, the noise goes away, and then I can drive off.
go figure. I just
Yeah, it's
yeah.
bizarre.
Where are you?
I'm in New Jersey.
Oh, it's too far to make a house call. Um, yeah, interesting, interesting. Call me, and
Okay.
I'll see what I can do. We've got a note here that says from Tom. That says my radiator bolts seem to be to the rear. So again, we're talking about that front piece. I just can't remember which way it goes. Anyway, he's all right. Um, and this is Al's iPhone. Before I make extensions for MGB clutch and brake pedal, does anyone sell them? Also, does anyone have an automatic transmission and linkage for sale for an MGB? So, Al's iPhone, I know Paul Deershaw at Sports Car Craftsman in Arvada, Colorado, Denver. Sports Car Craftsman was working on an automatic that he was going to glean the automatic from a rear wheel drive car, a Japanese one, and he got it real close. And then the guy who was funding the project passed away. So I think the develop money stopped, and so did the development. But why do you want extensions for the clutch and brake pedals? Because your feet don't reach down there far enough? If that's the case, what we did on several cars, several times, is get an extra set of pedals, cut the pedal off one of the pedals. That's the throwaway part, and then take that pedal and weld it onto the new pedal so that it was 2 inches higher. So you still have the same pedal. It is just welded onto the existing pedal. Theoretically, somebody could grind it back off. Of course, you got to take it out of the car. You got to take the pedals out of the car to do this. But we actually welded these other pedals right onto it, and it worked great. It worked
Yeah.
great for the woman. Oh, you're on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Okay.
No, I made a wooden block and attached it to it for
Yeah.
temporary to see if it would work, and it did. My wife's short, and
Okay.
she couldn't reach the pedals very well. And in fact, my legs aren't much longer than hers, and just the way it sits, it shoves you so close to the steering wheel. I'd like to be back a little further.
Understand.
Um,
Understand.
and I do
So,
have a donor card that I can cut them off and weld. I mean, I've done that my whole life, but
yep. Okay.
it seems like such a silly way to put those pedals and how far down they are, that it shoves you right up in that steering wheel, that I thought surely somebody's already dealt with this. So I've had the car for about 15 years, and this weekend was the first time we've driven it because I finally pretty much got it done.
Hey,
Um, so yeah, so it was a experience. So yeah,
it's an MGB, so there's no adjustment on the column. So yeah, you
no,
can't on the T types and the A's you can move the wheel fore and aft, the steering wheel, but on the B you can't. So yeah, so that's what we did. Seems like it's a complicated thing, but really the pedal box cover comes off, and then that bolt that holds the pedals in place comes out. You know where you probably already put that together. The
yeah.
pedals just drop out to the inside.
Well, it didn't quite drop out. I tried taking the brake pedal out to bend it over away from the throttle. And when I got everything disconnected, the yoke that goes around the push rod for the power booster wouldn't pass the shoulders on the
Oh, okay.
bell on the pedal arm. So then it was like, okay, now I got to move the booster. So I tried,
Oh,
everything's just one thing to
oh.
another. So I just wondered if anybody had developed
Yep.
Yeah.
something simple.
Hello, John.
Yes.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
I have a similar problem in my car with the clutch pedal. It seems like I couldn't depress it far enough. So I found a rubber stopper at a hardware store. It's about maybe 2 inches in diameter, about an inch thick, and I just was able to glue it to the clutch pedal, and that
Okay.
seems to work fine now.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's I don't know if that's a step up or away from a piece of 2x4 and duct tape. So yeah, I'm not sure it handled for a long time, but
Yeah, no,
yeah,
and I also thought if there was an automatic transmission for a MGB, I think they were what 35 model or something. Trans
yeah, it's the Borg Warner. So
Borg
you
Warner.
can you
Yeah.
can just keep looking. Terry Luft in Ohio had shoulder surgery, and he was going to drive his MGB. He and his wife always drive two cars, two MGs, and they're going to drive from the middle of Ohio to Corvallis, Oregon. I don't know when this was, 2015, some time ago, and he had shoulder surgery, and the doc said, do not use your right shoulder. He says, well, how am I going to shift my car? The guy goes, you're not. So Terry went online and he was looking for an automatic B and found a right-hand drive home model, automatic MGB, because they made automatic Bs in England, and bought it. And I maybe sell it. Call me and tomorrow, and I'll give you his phone number. Maybe it's for
Okay.
sale. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's right-hand drive, so you're going to have to start delivering mail or something.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Hey, you're very welcome. Okay, so anyway, we got a couple more notes about that fuse. Um, Here's a question here from Dave Sylvain. Should I put tubes in my tubeless tires on my TD? It has disc wheels. You don't need to. No, it just causes trouble. So if you're still on, you just have the tires mounted. There is a safety lip that comes with all modern wheels that's not on an MGA or a TD or TF rim, disc rim. They started putting them on in the MGB. You had to look at it. It's just an extra little snag, and it's supposed to keep the tire from running off the rim if you get a flat. But I've never seen that happen. I've never seen anybody run their tire off their rim, except
That's
Alan
great news.
Magnuson, who talked to me today. So no, you don't have to. It'll inflate just fine, just the way it is.
Okay, that's good to know because certainly heard about rolling the tire off the rim, and
I've never seen that happen.
good to hear. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. Here we got a cruise control, and here Kenny says it's a broke clutch plate spring. Okay, so it's that for that TD that's banging around, you know. So it's probably down in there someplace. Well, it's 8:53. We're done a little earlier than we almost always are. Sometimes it'll last for another hour, but we're right down to the end here, and so I've got to ask Doug Clark out of Chicago how many people he saw tonight.
John, I saw at the high water mark 131 is what I saw at the high water mark.
131. I think we're gonna have to do all about MGBs next time to get the numbers back up. Okay, so what hat did you bring tonight to experiment with?
All right. Well, I was practicing out at the golf course for a couple hours in the sun. Fortunately, it was not 95 degrees Fahrenheit here today. So, but still, I wore my ventilated pith helmet.
All right.
And then it's nice. The breeze felt good on my head, so that's what I was wearing today for a couple hours, John.
So the hat that I brought tonight is my father's campaign hat from Boy Scouts. This must date from 1934. Okay, but it's got the BSA emblem on the inside. Okay, and it is ventilated. It's got the little holes in it. So anyway, that's my my park ranger, my Boy Scout, some stuff dangling on here. I went and had this flat, and it was all curled up, and I went to have it attended to by a dry cleaner. And I don't know how it came up, and I said, "Well, you gotta be careful of it." I said it dates from about 1934, so it's not 100 years old, but we're getting there.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to indicate that I want to, because I don't want to interrupt anybody. But first of all, for the clutch travel, I clamped a 2-inch block of wood onto my clutch.
Okay.
And so that makes it much, you don't have to push it down so far. And
Okay.
you don't have to sit so close to the steering wheel.
Bingo.
So that's one thing. But I wanted to ask, I went recently from MGB to my TD. And in the TD, I find that in the steering wheel, you feel every bump on the road. And that was not the case with the B. With the B, I went over bumps in the road and didn't feel any vibration in the steering wheel. And in my TD, I get a jiggle when I hit a bump in the road.
Okay.
Now, is this common? Is that the difference between an MGB and a TD, or is there something wrong with my TD?
There's something wrong with the TD because it should feel all but the same as the B. So
Oh.
you've got rubber bushings on the inside of the A arms.
I replace those with hard.
Okay. Yep. So the harder they are, the more you feel off the road. I mean, if you wanted really hard ones, why not just put needle bearings in there? Because then you'd feel everything. But the softer those bushings are, the more it absorbs the vibration. Now on the MGB, where the shock absorber is connected to the top trunnion, there are also rubber bushings in there, and there are not rubber bushings on the TD. So yes, the TD is perhaps a little more harsh. But man, if the shocks are bad, you can tell if the shocks are bad by bouncing the fender, you know.
Yeah.
And
Seem okay.
so you want to feel the shocks. make sure that the shocks feel okay. What year is your TD?
1950.
Okay, that's got the gurling shocks on them, and those aren't as soft as the Armstrong shocks are later. So those are a little harsher too. So between those two things, maybe that's about it.
John,
Um,
what about the connection, the I call it a universal joint because I don't know what to call it on the steering shaft. If those rubber bushings have worn out, I had that happen on my truck,
this
and
is on the
it's all over the place.
this is what we'd call the clover. I call the clover
Yeah,
leaf.
that thing.
Yeah.
Clover leaf. So those have got bushings, and that should because an MGB doesn't have that. So that should soften the steering just a little bit. So
But if they're worn out, then it could cause the steering to
exactly.
wobble after you hit a bump.
Awful. Yep. Yep. So
So
anyway,
what if I were to put a anti-sway bar in there? Will that make a difference?
that will not make a difference that way. It'll transform the car and the way the car handles. A front anti-sway bar is the single most dramatic thing you can do to the front suspension. By 1963, almost every MGB had a front anti-sway bar. Not all of them, almost all of them. And from that point back, none of them had it. The MGA you could order it with it, or you could put one on later, but it just transforms the front suspension. Oh my gosh!
In what way?
Going around corners, right now the car wants to roll away from the corner because of the centrifugal force.
Uh-huh.
And this just keeps it nice and solid on the ground. It really it's the most transformative thing you can do.
Oh, nice. I also want to ask, is it okay to cruise at 4,000 RPMs in
Yes,
my PD?
yes, as long as you got good oil pressure.
Uh-huh,
Now
yeah.
your oil pressure originally is read from the cylinder head. So those numbers are usually 20 pounds less than if it was read at the cylinder block, which is the way that they started reading the oil pressure later on. So you're getting on the road, you're getting figures around 40.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yep.
Oil pressure, right.
And do you know for sure that the oil pressure is read from the head? That's where it was on your car originally.
Then I assume that's what it is now.
Okay, yeah. So that's fine. That means you got about 60 pounds oil pressure in the engine. That's the critical thing. Yep.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Very helpful.
Thanks. Back to hats. Back to hats. So anyway, and I brought just another one, Doug, in case you had another one.
No, I just sorry, John. I'm on my phone now, but no, I'm
Okay.
just do with my ventilated pith helmet tonight. Thank
All
you.
right. Okay. Well, I'll go with my ventilated
Boy
campaign
Scout.
hat. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
So we are done for tonight. Our next Zoom will be just a moment. Let me take a look here. Nominally, it'll be the 21st. Why wouldn't it be the 21st? Is that when the MGB meet starts in Crystal Lake?
No, week after.
Starts on the 28th. What's that, Dave?
It's the 28th.
Oh, okay. So the 21st. So all other things being equal, we'll do our next Zoom on the 21st, and it'll probably be a more popular subject than T-types were tonight. Maybe we'll jump up into the world of MGBs or carburation or something like that. So if you got any special requests, any suggestions, you can always call me. You can always send me an email. Marty and I are both eager to do exciting zooms that everybody wants to watch. And I just had a flash today, and I think I want to start doing some podcasts with MG owners. But we'll let you know how that's going to work out.
Hey,
So
John,
yes,
just think about the T types as planting the seed for us to think about getting additional cars.
there. Can
It's
you
marketing.
So one of my standard MG lines, I've got all these lines.
Yeah.
Always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first, right?
Yeah.
One of it, there's always a reason to buy a new tool. I mean, there's just lots of lines, but one of them is, can you own only one? So
There you go.
there you go.
That's the title for it. Can you own more than one?
There we go. There we go. So we'll have to have everybody weigh in with how many MGs they own. And of course, Terry and Carol Luft, if they come on, they'll win, hands down. Nobody owns as many
Unfortunately,
MGs.
the answer is no.
What's that?
Unfortunately, the answer is no.
Yeah,
It's
sometimes
a
Terry's on. So, all right. Well, anyway, ladies, gentlemen, thank you very kindly. It's been a real pleasure. Hit that PayPal button when you have a chance, and it's time to say good night.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Good John, and good night.
Night all.
Good night, John.
Good night.
Thanks, John, and good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night. I'm going to go to gallery view here and see who's still on there. Where can I even find gallery view?
Top of your screen.
They
up to the right.
Well, there it is. View gallery. I was on speak. Oh, there's everybody. So, John Esposito's on tonight. Hey, John, how you doing? So John's there, but he's still muted. So you can
Yep. John built the transmission that's now on my TD. Runs great.
Wonderful. And Alan, you must have missed your other meeting. Oh no, that's the other meeting for the other night. Yep.
Yeah, that's later. I was listening into much of this meeting, and I heard you talking about my tire coming off. But
Yes.
that was its speed in a corner. So,
But that was because you hit a nail.
that's right. And the deflated tire, when you're going around a corner,
Yes.
tends to roll off the rim. So, but interesting conversation tonight, and I really a lot that was on the TD and also on the Magnet before it went on to the MGA was a very good front suspension, and a lot of things happened. Go ahead.
Yep, it did. It did. And I just saw, who did I just see? Ron Nugent. Are you back in Pasadena, or are you still up north? I can't hear you though because you're muted. But
today I'm in Pasadena.
Okay.
A couple of days rather than Paso Robles, about 200 so miles north of here.
Okay.
With the MG.
Nice. Barney, thanks. It looks like you're in tropical lands, but I know that's just your background. But where are you tonight, Barney?
Oh, we're sticking around right on the northern Illinois border near Wisconsin, real close by.
Okay, all right, up by Woodstock someplace, huh?
We're real close to Rockford, Illinois.
Oh yeah, okay, all right, okay, all right. Well, everyone, thank you very, very, very kindly, and we look forward to seeing everybody again and more.
Thank you, John.
At our next
Thank
one.
you, John.
Mark, thank you. All right.
Thanks as always, John. See you next time.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Adios.
Safety fast. Buy
Thanks,
another
John.
MG. Buy another MG.
All right.
Can you own only one? Yeah.
No, you can't. It's a disease.
No.
Talk to y'all later. Bye.
I can have only one, but I have to drive it 700,000 miles.
Yeah, Barney, you got your distance on that when you up against Bob and Gloria, but you won by a couple 100,000 miles or something. So
Yeah, I only got 540,
okay,
41. Same engine though.
Yep.
Not the same pistons.
Okay. Well, yeah, Barney's been through a couple engines too. So, yep. All right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.